The revolution's begun. The time to stand up has come. We are the rocking of the throne. We are the rocking of the throne.
Hi, I'm Victor Tiffany, the co-founder of Revolt Against Plutocracy. The following video is an excerpt from a lengthy discussion I had on the Facebook page, The Harsh Reality. In it, I offer progressive voters 9 tablespoons of harsh medicine because I believe it's important for candidates who support Medicare for all to say what they need to say in order to maximize their chances of getting elected. I hope you enjoy the following discussion.
Well, I want to ask people to keep an open mind, right? We're supposed to be on the left. We're supposed to be open-minded. And so I ask people just listen to my 9 arguments. Listen, let me make my case, and then decide where you come down on this particular issue, this argument that I'm going to make, which begins with an ethical quandary.
Let me get a glass of water.
Sure, I'll drink to that.
Okay.
Ethical quandary for you and all viewers. A terrorist has kidnapped 100 Americans. You don't know who they are. He's got them in a building, and he's going to blow the building up and kill all 100 of them. And somehow he's got it in for you. You, the viewer, you, Harsh, you, the individual. He's got it in for you because he has a demand on you. His demand is simple. You have to tell 2 white lies, stretch the truth 3 times, tell 4 fibs, and a whopper. And if you do that, he'll release all 100 hostages unharmed. But if you insist on telling the truth, he's going to push the button, blow the building up, and kill all 100 of those people. You don't know who they are. What are you going to do? Are you going to tell the truth and let those people die? Or are you going to tell those list of lies and fibs and whopper as he demands and save their lives? What's your choice?
I would ask the hostages first before I decided anything.
You're not in contact with them. That's not a possibility. You have to choose. Lie or tell the truth.
Do I like these people?
You don't know these people. They're Americans.
That's a tough one.
The clock is running. He's going to push this button if you don't decide you're going to lie. Okay. Harsh medicine, tablespoon number 1. This isn't even a tough decision. The idea that what's in your mind, this version of the truth that you hold, is more important than even one life is no philosopher of ethics in this country will say this is a tough decision. Human life is privileged over truth.
Well, hold on one second.
Hold on. Let me just finish my statement. Harsh medicine, tablespoon number 1. Then you can ask me the question.
Right.
Human life is privileged over truth in every case.
Is it though? Because some people would rather die than lie.
If it's their choice, that's their choice. It's not their choice. It's your choice.
Right.
You're putting your version of the truth ahead of their life.
Wow.
So let me change the question for you, Harsh,
and
or anyone else.
And second of all, what situation where someone would hold like 100 people hostage, and all I would have to do is tell a few lies, tell a few fibs, and just BS the rest of them? When in a situation like that, when in reality they'd be asking for a lot of money, a lot of criminal activity, and actual chaos.
You're making something way more complicated than I wanted to. There is an analogy.
Well, you're talking about a terrorist.
Hold on for a second, Harsh. There is an analog that I'm going to get to. Let me take this one step at a time. I want to carry you and the audience along with me. Okay. So you've already decided that maybe the truth might be, telling the truth might be worth killing them. So let me change the question just a little bit. I don't say killing them. I mean letting them die. Let me change the question. Let's say, Harsh, it's not 100 people you don't know. It includes, those 100 people include close friends and relatives of yours. Now, are you going to tell a lie and save their lives, or are you going to tell the truth and let them all die?
I mean, a hostage isn't a political campaign, so I don't know what to tell you.
This is an analog. I want you to just answer the question. You are in a ethical quandary. There's no good answer. They're both bad answers. I'm not saying lying is good. I'm saying one is better than the other.
If a campaign was like life or death, and you know.
Well, I'll explain the analog. Let's just get to this step right here first. Are you going to lie to save your friends and family?
No.
No? You're going to tell the truth and let your friends and family kill. See, harsh medicine tablespoon number 2, you are fetishizing truth. You're making it something way more important than it in fact is.
I mean, you're the one coming up with the false equivalency here. A terrorist attack. Well, you know, if you could.
Wait a second. I haven't made an equivalent to anything yet. You're jumping to conclusions. I haven't even told you what the analog is. You are jumping to conclusions as to what this is equivalent to. All right. You're distorting the whole thing, and let me just finish this up. Your case is, first of all, you think the truth is more important than life. And I say you're fetishizing truth. And if I'm wrong about that, Harsh, go to any philosopher of ethics in the United States and ask him or her. Because you're wrong.
Of course you
are. The fact is, human life should be privileged over truth. Because truth exists up here. And why you're preserving some mental construct that you have over human life, I don't understand. I suggest you go to a philosophy instructor.
Victor, first things first. Of course I would lie to save people's lives. But I have no idea what that has to do with the damn campaign.
I haven't told you yet. Let me build this up one step at a time. So at least I'm glad you're not more ethically challenged, because now you understand indeed saving people's lives is more important than telling the truth. So here's the analog. This is now how we're going to get the candidates. The analog is the 100 people are people who in the United States that don't have health care. The terrorists are the health insurance companies who don't care about them dying. They want their money. If they don't pay their health care insurance, they can just go ahead and die. And it's not you who has to tell the truth. It's the candidate who supports universal health coverage. May or may not have to lie, depending on where they stand on certain issues. They don't have to lie about universal health care. The public is with us on that issue. That's not what they have to lie about. But they may or may not have to lie about another subject, which I'm going to get to in a minute. But that's my point. If it's okay for you, Harsh, to lie to save people's lives, then it should be okay for the candidates to do the same thing. Otherwise, you're a hypocrite. And I don't think you are. So let me make one more point about this. Let me make one more point about this. Not only would you lie properly to save people's lives, so would everyone else. Because as a matter of fact, can you see this?
Oh man, Victor.
I'm not saying this. This is the author. He's using data. If you want to just interrupt me and not make my argument, then I'll just do a monologue on my own Facebook page.
I'm sorry, Victor.
I'm hoping you're going to ask me questions, not constantly interrupt and talk over me.
All right, I'm sorry, Victor. I've been very entertained this far. I'm sorry. This has been you're like one of the most entertaining guests I've ever had. I'm sorry, Victor.
I'm trying to make an argument, and I'm willing to stop and let you counter what I'm saying and ask questions, but you keep talking over me, and I think that's just making it confusing and hard for people to understand what's being said.
I'm sorry, Victor. I won't talk over you.
The ethical quandary is every candidate, and you or we, the argument, or what I'm saying is you can't hold them to a higher standard than we hold ourselves. The fact is, we all lie. Maybe we're not pathological liars. We don't lie as a matter of routine, but sometime in your point, Harsh, you have lied. If you're married, for example, and your wife says, do these pants make my ass look fat? Oh, no, dear, of course not. We all lie. Sometimes it's fibs. Sometimes we lie to save the feelings of our children. But we all lie from time to time. And what my whole argument is we can't hold candidates to a higher standard than we hold ourselves, because that's hypocrisy, and that's harsh medicine tablespoon number 3? Go ahead and ask.
Yeah, well, but doesn't that sound kind of contradictory to the whole point of this entire movement? Are we supposed to hold our candidates to a higher standard? Are we supposed to demand more? Like, why are we supposed to demand like the bare minute, like as much as I demand of myself? You know, why is that? Are we supposed to vote for people who are better than us, not people who are just like us? You know, like, are we supposed to vote for people who are like, man, that guy's awesome. Yeah, I like that guy. Now, like, oh, wait, any asshole could be like him. Like, I don't get that whole concept.
Well, hopefully by the time I finish making the rest of my points, it'll become more clear.
Right.
Yeah, sure, we want to idealize the candidates we support, but we also have to accept the fact that they're human, like us, and all people lie. That's the thesis here. Everybody lies. And so I don't understand why to hold them to a higher standard means we're hypocrites. Right? I don't think we should hold them to any standard that we don't hold to ourselves. So that's my argument or my answer to your question. Now I have a much bigger, broader problem.
Right.
And that's the whole idea of what is truth. When we say a candidate must tell the truth, my question is, what truth? What version of the truth? Your truth? Steve Grumbein's truth? The candidate's truth? I have all kinds of problems with even understanding what the truth is. And I'll let you get me here in a second. So truth is a function of at least 3 factors. Time, because truth changes over time. Perspective, because we have different perspectives, we have different views on what might be true. And values. Our values tint or color our perception of the world. Right? What we think is the truth will vary if one person is a liberal, one person is a conservative. 2 people can listen to a presidential speech, and I don't mean any particular president, but a presidential speech, and hear 2 different things. One might say, "Oh, that guy's honest," and the other one might think that guy's a liar. Right? Why? Because they have different values. So this whole question that a candidate must tell the truth, I just go, why? What version of the truth? Who are you to say what the truth is? What if the candidate has a different version of the truth because you have better information than he or she has? All right. So you hear her or him say something, you think to yourself, he or she is lying. The candidate is lying. I know the truth. And then a couple weeks later, the candidate finds out, gets the same information you have. Oh, now the truth changes. In that sense, truth is like a science, right? When a better theory comes along, the old theory is displaced and the new theory replaces it in science. And the same is true for truth. We have a version of the truth that reflects a reality out there. And it turns out, I didn't have enough information. So that version of the truth changes. So I just saw a comment come up and say there's only one version of the truth. Well, harsh medicine tablespoon number 4. That's simply not the case. You are fetishizing truth. You are almost reifying truth. Right here's the truth. I can see it. It's right here. No, you can't see it. It's up here. We have no idea. We have no idea what a candidate's version of truth is because it's in here.
Yeah, but there's a difference between perspective and the truth. I think you're defining more perspective than the truth, because the truth is the truth, no matter whether or not I know it or you know it. Now, if someone knows something that they think is true, that doesn't necessarily mean it's true.
See, I think you're making truth into something it's not. I don't think truth is all that. I think you're fetishizing truth. I have what's called a deflationist view of truth.
Buddha Cat asks, what about ethical behavior?
So now we're talking about honesty. All right. So let's go back to the quandary. A candidate who supports universal health care has every right to lie if he or she needs to in order to get elected, right? Because the higher standard, the higher ethical value, the higher ethical value, and remember, we're talking about ethics, is to get Medicare or some version of universal health care passed through Congress, signed by the president, and save human lives. That's the higher ethical standard here. And if a candidate has to lie about something, and I haven't gotten to that yet, who are you to say no? right? You lie, but we can't allow the candidate to lie in order to save human lives. I just think that's misplaced values.
Right.
Back to truth, though. I don't think there is an essence of truth, right? That's part of the problem I have with this whole idea that candidates have to tell the truth. I don't think there is an essence of truth. I don't think truth is certainly it's not something we hold in our hands. It's not here. It's up here. So it's just a human mental construct.
Right. I'm going to just read some of the comments. The truth, Kimberly Fujioka says the truth is a fact. If Bernie Sanders says 9/11 was caused by 2 planes crashing into buildings, I would say he's lying. Well, that's an interesting way of putting it.
Well, it's because truth is a matter of perspective.
Ask a politician what happened at 9/11 and see what they say. And another one was, you tell your wife, from Cassandra, she says, you tell your wife what she would look good in, not just lie about what she doesn't. And Kimberly says, no political candidate has anything near the morals I do. I can't lay it to that claim, but Kimberly's a better person than myself, apparently. So, and Buddha Cat says, people at the very least expect politicians to do what they say, which doesn't even happen. And of course, they say lead by example.
There's so many things there. I'm not even sure where to begin. So before I plunge into the next argument,
accepting one type of lie opens a floodgate that all lies must be accepted. So
that's actually a good comment, and I want to come back to that when I'm done making my case, because that's actually probably the best criticism that's come up so far, and it might actually point to the weakest part of my argument. Let me first talk about what I think candidates should lie about if they have
modern day truth versus perception debate, flat Earth, according to our guy Brian McCown.
Would it be all right if I go ahead and finish my next point here instead of constantly having to deal with?
I love the comments. I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be there are through the course of the whole thing. We can address them maybe when I get done trying to make my overall argument. When I ran for Congress in 1992, I had a hard-headed consultant, that's not the word I want, advisor out of New York City, who told me, just tell them what they want to hear. All right? And that was a pre-Overton window version of candidates have to give opinions, versions of the truth, and policy positions that fall within a certain spectrum. Overton window was posthumously named after Joseph Overton, and his theory was if we have a range of policy positions that candidates can take. This is a theory for candidates, not for you, not for me, not for pundits, not for journalists. This is for candidates.
Right.
They have to fall within this range somewhere, this so-called window. Too far to the left, they won't get enough support to win the election. Too far to the right, same thing. They have to fall somewhere in this window. So this is where I think a candidate might have to lie. So let me just point out that, as I already said, they don't have to lie about health care, right? Because they already support health care. But the fact of the matter is, if a candidate isn't willing to say what he or she has to say, and sometimes that just means staying silent about an opinion outside of that Overton window. Just say nothing, if you will. Tell the lie of omission. Just be quiet. But if you're not willing to do what you need to do in order to get through that Overton window, you're going to lose the election, and that's harsh medicine, tablespoon number 5.
I need to coin that phrase.
You can take it from me. I haven't copywritten it.
I have to coin that at some point.
It's all yours. I steal half of my ideas. You can certainly steal mine.
Our guy Joe Logan says, Country Joe Logan says, politicians don't lie to save lives. They lie to support the murdering people all over the world and here.
Well, remember, I'm only condoning and advising lies for this in fact, I make this disclaimer on my website that this is only applicable to people who support universal health care. If you don't do that, I don't condone it. It's not moral to do so. it's immoral to lie. But I'm saying if the whole point here is to get elected and provide universal health care, it's actually more moral to lie than it is to tell the truth, lose the election, don't get health care, and let people die. That is a very narrow sort of focus of my entire argument. I want to give three examples. This is probably going to be the longest part of the whole session because it's 3 examples. First example, take a candidate who has an unpopular position, like my position on the Second Amendment, which I think is completely obsolete. It's been obsolete since the invention and use of nuclear weapons. We have no need whatsoever for militias running around the countryside or through city streets, armed to the teeth. So for what? National security? That's what it was supposed to be for. It's completely obsolete. So my policy position is we need a constitutional amendment to overturn the Second Amendment. Right? That's what I actually believe. But that's not within the Overton window. That's to the left of the Overton window. And if I can say that because I'm not running for Congress, right? I'm not running for office. We can disagree, we can have a debate, but I'm not going to lose any votes because I make that unpopular position. However, a candidate who may agree with me can't do that. Absolutely can't make that argument. So my recommendation is, number 1, don't say anything about your policy preference. Right? That's first advice. Second advice, if you're asked, you can say something that fits in through the Overton window. For example, I support universal background checks on the purchases of all guns, new and used. That glides right up the middle of this Overton window, 90% support roughly for that kind of policy position. But if the candidate is asked point blank by a moderator or an opponent or a journalist, do you support the Second Amendment? That's the point in time where I think it's perfectly ethical. It's the right thing to do at that point to save these people's lives. You reach in your back pocket, you pull out the Whopper card, you lay it on the table and said, of course I do. Now, no candidate wants to get caught lying for all the reasons coming up in these comments and all these positions against lying. Oh my God, we can't have people lying. We have to hold them to a higher standard, blah, 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 blah. They can't get caught lying. All right, so this policy position started in here, but if the candidate ever made that public in a blog post, in a letter to the editor, in a speech, if that private policy position is public, then the candidate has to lie, has to back into that lie by saying something like, I used to think that the Second Amendment was obsolete, but now I've come to believe it's an essential part of American culture. A candidate can never admit to lying, can never get caught lying, because we all know how important it is. Let's just look at the comments and take your own perspective on this, Harsh. We don't want to support liars. So if they're going to have to lie, which I believe they ethically should in this situation, they can't get caught. You have to sometimes, if it's a public truth, you have to back into that lie. So that's first example. Second example has to go back to this person I had this debate with a couple Thursdays ago. You asked how this all got started. I decided I want to look at his Twitter feed to see if I could find something that might be something I might be able to claim as a lie. And I didn't. Instead, what I found was a retweet of something Trump tweeted out. The contents, he didn't just retweet it, he filled in something to the effect of the United States is an evil empire. And it was before you, referring to the president, before you were elected. So here's a Bernie-crat, right, running in the Democratic primaries, out there insinuating in clear language that President Obama was an evil emperor. Oh, maybe he was. I think you and I might come pretty close to agreeing with something like that. And all the bombs he dropped, all the innocent people he killed, the Americans he assassinated with no due process for a whole wide variety of reasons. I think dangerous and horrible emperor is a good label for Obama. But again, I'm not running the Democratic primaries. If I were his opponent, first thing you do is have somebody scrutinize your social media feeds of your opponents. So if his opponent is sitting there looking at these tweets, all he has to do to win this primary, the opponent, is take a screenshot of that tweet, put it up on the television screen with a 30-second voiceover. My opponent thinks the United States is an evil empire. He thinks President Obama was an evil emperor. He thinks you are evil. He thinks our good men and women in the military protecting freedom are evil. He thinks our nation is evil. Do you really want to send him to represent you in Congress? I'm Joe Blow, and I support this message. I think at best, coming out with an opinion like that, unprompted, was an unforced error. Again, my first piece of advice, shut up. Saying something like that just conveyed an utter lack of campaign discipline. Third example, and I'm going to bring in Bernie Sanders now. We used to interview candidates who signed the contract for American Renewal, and that's one way we can hold candidates accountable. What if they're lying to get elected? Well, force them to sign this contract, right? Because then at least, even though it's not enforceable in a court of law, at least we can hold them accountable and raise hell with them at their town hall meetings if they go to Congress and don't do what the contract says they're going to do, what they've committed themselves to doing. But anyway, I digress. One of the questions we asked them during these interviews, I pose as a challenge, I actually assert to these candidates, you're a tax and spend liberal, aren't you? And the reason we do that is to find out if these candidates understand modern monetary theory or not. So depending on their answer. So with two of these candidates, the live, went through the rest of the questions. We cut the live stream off. And then I went back to them and asked them, because one had been interviewed on Real Progressive's page, and I had a pretty good sense she knew the better answer, which would have been, no, I'm just a spend progressive. We don't need to raise taxes. That's the modern monetary theory answer to that question. But she didn't give me that answer. She gave me the obsolete gold standard answer to that question. And I asked her, and she says, I thought you might be looking for the modern monetary theory answer, but you know what? I didn't want people in my state to think I'm crazy. And there it is. She has a private policy position and a public policy position. And the other candidate, same set of conditions. She didn't say I didn't want people to think I'm crazy. She said, I don't think the voters understand the better answer. So same thing. Now, who else was famous? We all loved him, or maybe you didn't, but those of us who were Bernie or bust, those of us who supported his candidacy, really thought Bernie was telling the truth. He didn't possibly have a private policy position and a public policy position. But guess what? Who was his economic advisor? Stephanie Kelton. And certainly she didn't tell him or advise him to raise taxes. He did it on his own. Now, we can only guess, and I've asked her, I've gone to her website and I posed this question to her, why did Bernie advocate raising taxes if he knew modern monetary theory? Because I wanted to see if he had a private policy position or a public policy position. So we can't say with certainty that he did, but he certainly knew he didn't need to raise taxes, and yet that's what he campaigned on. So I don't think even truth-telling radical Bernie Sanders was 100% straight up because he ran on policy position he didn't need to take. Those are my three examples. That's harsh medicine, tablespoon number 6. You to say what you got to say or don't say anything in order to get through the Overton window.
Right. Fun fact. You know who my cover photo for the page is, right? Stephanie Kelton. Dr. Stephanie Kelton. Man, you really aren't a fan of the show. Anyhow.
Well, it's nothing to do with her. I admire her work. I think she's the Galileo of modern monetary theory.
I know, but I'm saying you don't really know anything about my page if you don't know. You don't like me at all. Rodolfo Cortes says, your view of the country is too simplistic / overgeneralized. Lots of people think Obama is an evil emperor.
Right, but are they Democrats? Right? He's in the Democratic primary now. That's the problem. If he was a Green, if this candidate was a Green or an independent, he might be able to get away with that. But he's running, he's a Bernie-crat. That's the problem. I don't think Democrats, by and large, agree with that.
Right. Bernie is not a truth-telling. According to Kimberly Fujioka, Bernie is not a truth-telling radical.
Well, see, that was kind of one of my points, wasn't it?
Right.
Let me just go.
Sunday
I have
says
three
harsh.
more.
I can't watch. I won't plus that. I'll be nice to you. Okay.
Well, I don't care. Like I said, I mean,
well,
that's
she says
not
harsh. I
trolling.
can't watch this Pink Devil anymore. I don't think you're a devil.
That is trolling. She is a cult follower in Real Progressives. I know exactly who's saying that. She's been attacking me for 2 weeks now.
Right.
She's a mindless cult follower of Steve Grumbine. All right, so naturally she's going to say horse shit like that because she's in the cult of Steve Grumbine's version. So let me just one additional point here. I have three more to make. It is a candidate's right. Harsh. It is the candidate's right to lie. It is a constitutional right. He doesn't have to tell the truth. We're imposing that on him. So if the truth, because of this Overton window, if the truth forces him or her to say something that's unpopular, then what we're saying is the playing field that progressive candidates are on, it's already tilted. It's tilted because of money in politics. We don't have a lot of billionaires and millionaires supporting progressive candidates. So we already have the playing field tilted against us, our candidates, because of money in politics. We also have it against us because of the media. I actually had a CFAR candidate tell me he got on the ballot. He's the first one to get on the ballot. And someone in the media wrote, this guy's a nobody. All right, we have the media against progressive candidates. We have money in politics against progressive candidates. And here we are telling progressive candidates, don't exercise your constitutional right to lie if that's what if that's what you need to do to win. In other words, we're basically saying, let's tilt this playing field even further against the good guys and gals. And basically, if you say you have to tell the truth, basically what you're saying is, here's a white flag. Here's a white flag. Start waving it because you're going to lose. If you tell the truth that exists outside the Overton window, you're going to lose, and we demand that you lose. That's the problem here, right? If you insist on tilting the playing field even further against the good guys, you're basically handing them the white flag of surrender, and that's harsh medicine tablespoon number 7.
Mm-hmm. Buddha Cat says, ethics, Vic. Ethics, stay focused.
I am focused.
And
Elaine is missing it. Harsh, just a second. I want to stop right there. Elaine is missing the bigger argument. I am making the ethical argument. It's okay for the candidates who support universal health care to lie. In fact, it's the right thing to do. It's not a good thing to do. No one's arguing it's a good thing to do. If it's a choice between universal health care or lying, we've already been through this. Saving people's lives trumps truth every time. And there isn't an ethical professor in this country, a philosopher of ethics teaching at any university in this country who would disagree with that. So this fetishization of the truth, I don't understand. I think people are making truth, I think they're reifying truth. I think they're turning it into something that it just isn't. It's just a human construct that exists in our minds. And why are we reifying that? Why are we fetishizing that? When what really matters is getting the good guys and gals in Congress so they can pass universal health care.
Okay. Rodolfo Cortez says, this truth, lies, issues blown out of proportion. If you want to win it simple, direct voter outreach for months. That's it.
Yeah, well, if the candidate says the Second Amendment should be overturned, right? If he says something that's outside of the Overton window, if he just blows off the Overton window and everything I'm trying to advise, then he's going to lose or she's going to lose. All right, basically, you have to stay in the Overton window. That's the theory for candidates. And if they don't abide by the window, chances are they're going to lose.
Fun question. Is it okay for candidates to lie to go to war?
I don't think it's okay for candidates to tell the truth to go to war. But it is okay for them to lie to avoid war. I would say it's okay to lie. I would flip that around and say, because again, it's the greater good, the more ethical thing to do is lie if that somehow will stop this country from going to war, especially an immoral war.
Well, let me ask one question here. Christine
ahead.
Lowe's asks, if they lie, never support the truth, why do we vote? We should break off and form, sovereign communities and states and create our own money.
I love that. I love that question because it actually gets into this whole idea of lying is what's wrong with this country. That was part of the monologue, 26-minute monologue from a leader in economics, a leader of a national organization, lying. Candidates lying is what's wrong with this country. Or Brian Ramirez, who told Uphill Media that candidates lying is what got us into this mess. And that's such a naive view. First, what got us into this mess and what's wrong with this country has a lot more to do with the Lewis Powell secret memo to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce than it does with candidates lying or telling the truth. And I would say even neoliberalism, the Democratic Party embracing the Wall Street agenda, has more to do with what's wrong with this country than candidates telling the truth or lying. So candidates lying is a problem, but it's not the problem with what's wrong with this country.
Right.
It's the problem of representative democracy. What are elections? They are competitions for power. Anytime you have a competition for power, people are going to lie. So we can say, oh, progressive candidates shouldn't lie, but you and I both know that the neoliberals and the conservatives are going to lie because everybody lies. So here we are saying, oh, you can't lie. But we know the assholes are going to lie. The people we are against didn't lie or are going to lie. So why should we handcuff the good guys with our hypocrisy? I lie, but you can't lie. I just think that's crazy. Lying is what's wrong with representative democracy. And if you can't, if that's too much for you, I suggest people who think that's what's wrong with our country today need to put on their big boy pants or their stilettos, or in some cases both, and grow up. Lying is part and parcel of representative democracy. Always has been, is today, and always will be.
Comment. Anyway, let me read some of the comments.
I'd rather not. Can we read the comments after I make my final argument, which is one more? I have one more argument. Then you can read the arguments. Because these arguments basically are, especially from Sunday, she doesn't give a shit about the truth. She called me an idiot. All right, is this somebody who makes you as committed to the truth? I think she's a cult follower. So let's just blow off the. I came here to talk to you, Harsh. I came here to get your questions.
I'm here. I'm chilling, man.
I want you to challenge me. Forget these people who are listening for now. We'll come back to them later on.
Oh my God.
Final argument. Final argument. We are in a revolution. This is a revolution, right? Bernie sparked this thing, and it hasn't just stopped. It's still going on. I'm a revolutionary, and I presume you're a revolutionary. So what am I advocating? Think about revolutions past in history, right? I'm not advocating that people go out and grab guns and start killing people. I'm not advocating for assassination. I'm not advocating for blowing up buildings. I'm not advocating for breaking the law. I'm saying, as revolutionaries, we damn well had better incorporate every tactic, every legal tactic that is available to us, and allow candidates to use every legal tactic available to them. That's revolutionary. And if you think, oh no, candidates have to tell the truth, that's not revolution. That's snowflake. That's pre-revolutionary. You might as well just go back and live in some fantasy land. Because in fact, as I said, everybody lies, and it's endemic in representative democracy. Candidates are going to lie to get elected. Let's grow up. Let's act like revolutionaries, and let's allow candidates to use every tactic available to them, every legal tactic available to them. That's what a revolutionary would do, and that's Harsh Medicine Tablespoon number 9.
Well, I gotta say, this was one of the most entertaining shows I've done so far. I gotta be honest, I've read the comments and just listened to what you had to say, and I haven't stopped laughing. But Yeah, actually, since you do abdicate for lying, to win, or lying in general, lying to make yourself feel better.
No,
We
lying
asked,
for a very specific purpose to get
right,
candidates to get through the Overton window.
right. Anyway, the question that has to be asked, is one of our followers is asking, how do I know you're not lying? How do I know you haven't been,
If I look,
whole
my
time?
reputation ever since this burst out 2 weeks ago, my reputation has gone down the dumps. If I
Okay,
wanted to lie, if lying I would be out there trying to save my reputation. I would back up on all this instead of doubling down. I don't think I'm doing myself any favors by making the case that it's okay for candidates to lie. In fact, it's right for candidates to lie. So why, if I were
right,
going to lie, I would be covering my ass, not doubling down.
right. Which leads me to another question. You say this is the most successful way to do it through the Overton window, blah, yada yada yada. Well, then how come so many people have jumped ship from your organization?
My theory, there's only two. There were three of us. Actually, there were four when this first came up. And my theory is that as soon as I condone lies, as soon as I get that point, I condone candidates lying. I get to that point, their minds clamp shut. They don't want to hear anymore. They don't want to grasp the entire argument. They just go, "Whoa, man, I can't agree with that, so I'm out of here." Right? Without even asking me, "What are you talking about? How can you possibly say lying is okay?" Right? Instead of allowing me to present the ethical quandary, they just jump ship. So the answer, in just a few words, Harsh, is they don't have open minds. They have closed minds, and they fetishize truth. And there's most progressives today are fetishizing truth. And I don't know where that came from. I talked to my brother. I've talked to a lot of people offline about this, but my brother probably, not surprisingly, comes as close to me as anyone anywhere, because genetics and whatnot. So he answered in a heartbeat: "You lie, you save the lives." And of course, candidates lie if it means they have to save lives. There was no question. And again, if anyone thinks I'm wrong about this, just go to an ethics professor, right? Don't take my word for it. Go to any philosopher teaching in
From
university,
where?
college, anywhere in the United States who's taught an ethics
Where?
course, and
Who?
ask him, which is more important, saving lives or telling the truth?
But how are you even saving lives by this? If you're not even
Because
successful?
these candidates are progressives, and every progressive I know supports universal health care.
Right. But these candidates could be lying to progressives. They might be anti-progressive, according to our green Rodolfo Cortez, who is running, and I think California District 52nd. I'm not sure, not 52nd. I think it's a 37th or something. But
So that's part of the value of the contract, the candidate contract. We can hold them to their policy positions. It's not the same. It's not the same as a campaign promise. They're signing the dotted line. I will fight for this and this policy position when I get to Washington. Now, it won't hold up in court. When I flew to New Orleans for the
right.
Unrigged Summit, I sat next to a judge, and she made it very clear to me she would throw that case out. These candidate contracts don't hold up in court, but they do hold up in the court of public opinion. So that's the answer.
Kind of matters. Which Rodolfo Cortez says you shouldn't trust a candidate who says, "I'll only lie to you, I promise."
No, you shouldn't trust any candidate who says they will lie to you, who says, "I have told a lie," or who says, "I take Victor Tiffany's advice." The stupidest thing any candidate can say is, "I'm lying to you."
Right.
The whole idea is to do this on the down low.
Right.
Don't say you know Victor Tiffany. Don't say you take his advice. Don't say I'm lying. Just keep it to yourself. It's only in here in the first place, so keep it in here. Don't tell your wife.
Right.
Don't tell your campaign manager. Don't tell your closest friend. Keep it to yourself.
Right.
Revolt Against Plutocracy won't just be covering the news about the necessary revolution in the United States. Sometimes we'll be making the news. If you want to stay on top of the revolutionary actions and strategies of grassroots genuine progressives, and our allies, please subscribe to our YouTube channel today.